Welcome everybody to chapter 14 of the Gospel of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Chapter 14 is called Propaganda, starting with a quote from Mohandas Gandhi. I like your Christ, I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. Truer words never been spoken, in my opinion. The Pastafarian Guide to Propaganda. Spreading the word. Now that you know some of the science and history behind Pastafarianism, you may feel that you're ready to go out and spread his word. With this in mind, it is important to remember that one of the central ideas of FSMism is the idea of inclusion. Anyone can be a member, no matter their age, race, background, or even their religious affiliation. As we have stated earlier, we do not base our beliefs on dogma. If we did, we'd have to think that we're absolutely right about everything. Only assholes think that way, and Pastafarians are not assholes. So remember, Pastafarians are not assholes. We simply deliver his word and let the people decide. With inclusion in mind, we feel it necessary to approach members of other religions in an effort to show them our belief. It is possible that Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, and all the other religions, except probably for the Scientologists, may be willing to convert after hearing about FSMism. We welcome with open arms any member of other religions, and remember our guarantee. Try us for 30 days, and if you don't like us, your God will most likely take you back. This is an important detail in spreading his word. If it works for infomercials, it will definitely work for religion. The God-back guarantee should always be offered up front. It shows that we are confident about our beliefs and helps to build trust. Trust is very important when you're trying to change somebody's beliefs. And since we are one of the few religions that's never threatened non-believers with violence, it's all we have got. Before you begin evangelizing, remember to heed this warning. Be careful to whom you attempt to convert. Members of some religions should be approached with care. As a missionary, you must select a target wisely. Always try to keep high traffic areas. That way you can be sure to maximize religious outreach. Always present yourself in a neat and friendly manner. Unless you are wearing pirate regalia, which you should be, in which case you should remember that an eye patch will affect depth perception. This brings to our next point. When wearing an eye patch, always remember that objects may be closer or further away than they appear. Not only is this statement true in fact, but it's also true spiritually. If you're talking to a Mormon and he keeps smiling pleasantly, be sure to watch his hands. You may think you've cornered a potential Pastafarian, while he may be considering where his gun's at. Always be alert. You're doing his work, but his protective appendages might be occupied with other things. Ask yourself, is this guy taking just a few too many sips of his orange soda? Is one of his wives lurking in the background? If you start to get a bad feeling, leave and live to fight another day. Other religions may be pushy. We are not. In fact, take some hints from Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. As much as people like to get visited at home by strangers who tell them they are most likely going to hell, we prefer less intrusive means of missionary work. Our ways are subtle. Know your audience and choose the right message. This is important. Because of the non-dogmatic nature of FSMism, there's been some decisions as to whether liberal areas are better for missionary work. Indeed, Pastafarians seem to have good luck finding comforts on college campuses, although that could be due to the drugs. Still, there is no doubt the promises of a beer volcano and a stripper factory in heaven will likely be more effective with male college students, for example, than with female senior citizens. So always use your noodle and direct the right message to the right audience. A couple of other examples should help. Academics are likely to appreciate FSMism is based on rigid scientific observations. With them, it's a good idea to cite evidence of the flying spaghetti monster's existence. Bring this book along as an aid. Show the academics the pictures, graphs and diagrams, many of which appear to be scientific in nature. In addition, it may be helpful to note that we Pastafarians are involved in ongoing important research, most importantly related to the established link between global warming and the decline in the pirate population. The elderly. The elderly are most easily reached through their firmly entrenched moral values. FSMism is, after all, comparatively conservative religion. Even though we don't discriminate, and although we openly accept those of various backgrounds and sexual preferences to our religion, it can be noted as advantageous that there are many more gay and lesbian preachers in Christian churches than there are in FSM churches. And while there is nothing particularly important about that phenomena, it is apparently a big issue with some of the parishioners. So it may be helpful to point out that bit of statistics in order to grow our congregation. Children are generally not the brightest people and can be easily converted to FSMism. Mentoring pirates will ensure it. Celebrities are an interesting matter. Consider them to be a special project. When an actor or musician adopts a religion, it is a sure sign that it's going to be popular. As such, we suggest identifying one or two hot targets. Lindsay Lohan seems like she'd be open to Pastafarianism. Also, Madonna is probably up for a conversion too. We suggest approaching these celebrities who appear to be starving. You might want to mention that a high carbohydrate diet is just what they need to restore their physical and spiritual well-being. Interacting with believers of other faiths. We will now go through the various faiths and making suggestions for missionaries. As noted above, interacting with other faiths is a touchy subject, as most people who have already found religion believe unquestionably that theirs is the correct one. This is due to the fact that most mainstream religions have successfully convinced their followers that faith, belief not supported by evidence, is a good thing. And so, in the process of converting, say, a Christian to Pastafarian, not only do you have to convince them to believe in a different God, but you also have to convince them that strong belief without basis, while admittedly more comfortable than thinking, is not our way of doing things. In other words, Pastafarians reject dogma outright. So what it comes down to is that even if your potential convert accepts the existence of the flying spaghetti monster, he may be unwilling to let go of his dogmatic belief system, having grown accustomed to having his moral values decided for him. It is at least an uphill battle. That doesn't mean we don't try though. Pastafarians love a challenge. Choosing a target takes some psychology. Some religions are more open than others. Luckily, it is not hard to discern with what is considered acceptable in each religion. Mormons, for example, prefer to discuss faith door to door with strangers. It follows then that since this is their chosen method of discourse, they would welcome Pastafarian visitors showing up unannounced at their doorsteps. We suggest arriving as early as possible to make a good impression. Anyone can get up at noon, but it takes dedication and character to make a 5 a.m. visit. Your potential ex-Mormon new Pastafarian converts are likely to notice this and be impressed. It also may not hurt to bring along some orange soda. It's like crack for Mormons. No one knows why exactly, although scientists tell us it probably has something to do with genetic anomalies caused by generations of endogenous polygamy. Moving on to Christians. It seems that they, for the most part, don't do door-to-door missionary work, and so we can take a guess that they prefer privacy in their homes. However, it is a different story out in public. Christians can often be found spreading their faith around town, occasionally from elected government positions. We can gather from this that Christians value expressing their faith to the public, and so it follows that they would appreciate this behavior in members of other religions, specifically FSMism. Take, for instance, a group of Christians on a downtown street corner some Friday night, respectfully protesting passing partygoers with helpful non-judgmental signs such as "the party ends in hell" and "repent sinners, the party ends in hell." These messengers feel so strongly about sharing their interpretation of Christians' faith with strangers that they stand out in the cold for hours. Such open-minded sharing people are ripe targets for an FSM conversion attempt. We suggest emulating their behavior as much as possible. Make your own sign, but with our beliefs instead. Think of it as a cultural exchange where both parties can learn about each other's beliefs. And it is a great opportunity to explore differences and similarities for ongoing conversion efforts. For example, our Christian street corner friends may think beer drinking is wrong, as evidenced by their warnings of eternal hellfire, damnation, and obvious but not insurmountable difference from our view, which is that beer rules. And while there may be numerous opposing views such as these, there are going to be some similarities too. Christians believe in heaven, floating on clouds and filled with sunshine and happiness and whatever else, with admission strictly enforced by a judgmental God, morals being a large factor in determining if the new arrival will be let in or instead face an eternal burning lake of fire. Pastafarians also believe in heaven, and now you see that we have a similar view that we can build upon. While it is true that FSM have been thought to be quite different, featuring a beer volcano and stripper factory, among other attractions, these are details that don't necessarily have to be fully disclosed right away. Christians make up a large percentage of the world population, so obviously we are going to be dealing with them a lot. The majority of them, unfortunately, are not evangelizing on street corners, just waiting to be converted. Most are more conservative, preferring only to be told how to think rather than telling others how to think. At first, it may seem that this group is ideal to be assimilated into FSM religion, as we could, in theory, simply tell them new things to think. But remember, FSM is a fundamentally different type of religion. We don't tell people how to think, and we can't say it enough, we reject dogma outright. Our principles preclude us from claiming we know any truth. Instead, we make a strong argument for our beliefs with the realization that they could be wrong. Our beliefs are based purely on empirical observation, and so it would be dishonest to attempt to convert the conservative dogma-loving Christian populace this way. Also, please note that by us claiming that the majority of Christians prefer dogmatic belief to free thought, we are in no way trying to put them down or belittle their beliefs. Dogma admittedly serves a number of functions, primarily societal control, and allows followers to have a rigid set of moral and behavioral guidelines. For many people, this is not only comforting but necessary, specifically for born agents, the majority of whom would be in jail were it not for the church's dogmatic message to stop doing crazy shit. I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that I'd rather have the born against running to school board than stealing my car stereo for drug money. So in that respect, dogma is not all that bad. Born again nuts aside, as far away as possible, many Christians accept the church for legitimate reasons. In some cases, they truly believe what they're fed as truth, and so it's never an issue. Others accept the church for the amount of uncomfortable thinking it allows them to avoid. And then there are some Christians who enjoy the social benefits of a dictated belief system, but at the same time don't actually blindly accept what is presented as incontrovertible truth. These open-minded members are most likely converts to the Church of FSM. These people will largely not accept the Bible as being literally true. For some reason, finding it unlikely, for example that the first human female was created from a rib, or that the entire earth was flooded. In short, they are Christians but have not been infected with dogma, and so are all still able to think freely. They are prime candidates for conversion to FSM. The problem, of course, is separating the moderate, open-minded Christians from the dogmatic. Close-minded ones, luckily this has already been done for us, we need only visit universities or bookstores or similar locations, places where independent thought is held in high regard and where intelligent, educated people tend to congregate. There will be very few dogma-minded people there. These moderate Christians should require only the minimum of effort to be converted, being open-minded and intelligent. They will quickly see the benefits of a belief system based on empirical evidence. A religion that holds one of its highest tenets to be the rejection of dogma in its entirety is one not likely to be infested by close-minded fools. And moderate Christians will appreciate this. The sticking point, perhaps not surprisingly, may be Jesus, an all but ready convert who likes the ideology of an all but ready convert who likes the ideology, and probably pirates as well, may not let herself join because she feels a connection to the Christian Jesus. That is understandable. And remember, that's not our place as Pastafarians to tell anyone that their beliefs are wrong. Our role is simply to present our views, not to judge anyone else's views, and certainly not to push our beliefs on others. That being said, it is our duty to make as strong an argument as possible for the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. As such, if you find yourself in a missionary position with a moderate Christian, I think it is appropriate to note that the FSM, being all-powerful, could easily have disguised himself as Jesus and set in place the events that now form the basis of Christianity. If that's the case, and it seems entirely plausible, converting to FSMism would be more consistent with Christianity than worshipping the FSM-placed Christian God. And lastly, you might ask a moderate Christian a question that you've undoubtedly heard before. What would Jesus do? We suggest that Jesus would have taken a look at the direction things are going and converted to FSMism. Our beliefs and rejection of dogma are much more consistent with his ideology than much of modern-day dogmatic Christianity. And we find it hard to believe that Jesus would approve of a great deal of the politics enacted ostensibly on his behalf. And he probably wouldn't take kindly to the wars that have been fought in his name either. Born-agains present a different set of challenges. While technically belonging to the Christian faith, they are a separate entity unto themselves. We are hesitant even to refer to them as Christians, because their behavior reflects badly on the majority of Christians who are not insane. Born-agains are the most dogmatic of all, because it is dogma itself that forms their belief system. The born-again believe that everyone needs to be told what to do, and realistically that's the only thing keeping them out of jail. This group has a powerful system of beliefs, and they will tell you about it whenever they get a chance. Because of their strong dogmatic beliefs, we do not advise going after born-agains at this time. It is interesting to note, however, that there is only one thing born-agains enjoy more than telling people what to think, and that is drugs. Sometime in the future, after we've completed the construction of our missionary pirate ship, we will leave trails of crack vials running from rehab clinics to the port where our pirate ship is docked, and thus the born-agains will be led to us as they gobble up the crack like Pac-Man. The last Christian group we will consider is the Christian athlete. These soldiers of God are probably more dangerous than born-agains due to their size and stamina. They should be avoided at all costs, and only observed on television or watched from the relative safety of your seats set high in the back of an arena or stadium. Christian athletes can be seen in the middle of the court, field or other playing surface after their games, and they are known for thumping their chest and pointing in the air after touchdowns, goals or baskets. This unseemly sense of self-importance is disturbing, as God probably doesn't even watch sports. If they think he is actually paying attention when they give praise during their interviews, then they're probably even dumber than they sound. As far as the Flying Spaghetti Monster, he is believed only to watch NASCAR and an occasional game of soccer. How else to explain their popularity and their survival as a professional American sport? But we don't know for sure. Again, Christian athletes are highly dangerous and stupid, and should be avoided at all cost. Now that we've got Christians covered, we can move on to the other religions. It is important to remember that regardless of what you hear from many elected officials, there actually are other religions, and they will probably be around for a very long time. Let us explore further. Islam. Islam is the world's second largest religion after Christianity. Granted, we don't see a lot of Muslims in this country, but we do see a lot of them on television. It seems that many of them live in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. This is interesting to note because some of our greatest missionary work is taking place in these places, where there are a surprising number of Pastafarians in the military. While people believe that the president sent troops into Iraq to find WMDs, it is pretty much been common knowledge that most of the weapons they were supposedly looking for were over in Iran and North Korea. So why did he send so many troops to the wrong country? As you know, until recently Iraq was a country run by a secular government under the rule of Saddam Hussein. High government officials in the United States predicted correctly that it would be easier to convert a secular country to Pastafarianism than it would be to convert, say, Iran. This program of bringing his word to the people has been termed by the Pentagon as Operation Weekly Multi-Appendaged Deity, or Operation WMD for short. As President Bush probably once said, "We are making progress in Iraq, but it's going to take time." Tune in to see how it goes. Hinduism is another big religion. There are millions and millions of Hindus in India. You might just show a Hindu a picture of a typical Hindu god to illustrate the extreme noodliness of his appendages. That should work. Buddhism, like FSMism, is a highly peaceful religion. Buddhists practice much meditation, and we suggest that the best way to allow for them to be touched by his noodly appendages is simply to share his favorite meal. After a couple of healthy portions of pasta, watch the Buddhist slip into a food coma, which is very much like experiencing meditation. When he comes out of it, he will most certainly have received enlightenment. Jews are an interesting group to consider. They are certainly a driven bunch, often highly educated and well connected. For the highly educated Jews, simply follow the advice given under academics. They will enjoy the empirical evidence that we provide them and will surely adopt Pastafarianism for themselves. For Orthodox Jews, point out the tzitzit that they wear. Moses himself was told to wear one, and the strings do resemble his noodly appendages, so we can only assume that the flying spaghetti monster made the suggestion in the first place. Those trendy Kabbalists wear red strings around their wrist to ward off the evil eye. Red is the color of his sauce, and string is the shape of his spaghetti, proving that even Madonna has been touched by his noodly appendages. Jainism is perhaps the ultimate pacifist religion. They don't believe in violence of any kind. They only eat vegetables. Some of them don't even wear clothes. They are like three-toed sloths of religious people. Approach them slowly, for they know to spontaneously burst into tears. Talk to them quietly about our non-violent and all-inclusive policies. Don't mention the pirates. Offer them some vegetable ramen. The Jains are often starving and will appreciate the food. Shintoism is the official religion of Japan. Yet it is interesting to note that a large percentage of Japanese people practice both Shintoism and Buddhism. This makes Shintoists an easy target. Simply suggest that they adopt a third religion, Pastafarianism. Again, offer them some ramen. Japanese people love it. Rastafarians are loosely organized and not particularly widespread. Because a large concentration of Rastafarians lives in the Caribbean, a key habitat of pirates, Pastafarians and Rastafarians appear to intermingle quite well. The best thing to do when converting Rastafarians is to wait. Once they've got the munchies, offer them some ramen. Mention how the two religions rhyme. Point to Bob Marley's dreadlocks and compare them to the nodal appendage FSM. We actually believe that most Rastafarians are Pastafarians already. Scientologists are best left alone. In summary, there are several ways to spread his word. Depending on the location, it might be safer to post flyers, posters, brochures, etc. than confronting strangers. However, while anonymously planted flyers and brochures may convert a few people, they're probably not enough to convert those with a more skeptical mind. Our religion is, after all, admittedly hard to believe at first. But no one ever said that faith was easy, and having several packs of delicious ready-to-cook ramen around you at all times will help. Person-to-person evangelizing is a necessary method of outreach, as there are some people who will not allow themselves to be touched by his noodly appendages unless you're right there putting it in their face. And a final note from Bobby regarding midgets. I can honestly say that I've received much more flack over the term midgets from fully grown, oftentimes fat people than from little people themselves. One could make the argument that the little person community itself is not concerned with such petty names of political correctness. And while that's a valid and probable explanation in the name of full disclosure, I would like to note that my hearing is not the best, and that if an angry little person has ever confronted me over the term midget, I may not have noticed, as I generally look straight ahead. At any rate, until such time as a little person himself asks me to stop, I will continue to use the term midget as often as possible. And that concludes chapter 14. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please consider subscribing, hit that like button and share with anyone you think might join the cause and convert others to the worship of his noodliness, the flying spaghetti monster. I wish you a good night and hope to see you soon.